Welcome to the SMB Community Podcast with hosts Amy Babinchek, James Kernan, and Karl Polachek. Produced by Kernan Consulting and for the international MSP community. We are dedicated to making every IT professional a successful IT professional.
Today's SMB Community Podcast is brought to you by Huntress Managed Security. Cybersecurity isn't just about software, it's about expertise. In today's ever-evolving threat landscape, you need more than lines of code. You need human intelligence to outwit cyber criminals. Huntress is tailor-made to provide human expertise. Our team of seasoned professionals has your back, ensuring your assets stay safe. With 24/7 vigilance, our human-led SOC never sleeps. We monitor, investigate, and respond around the clock. While you focus on growing your business, we provide first response to hackers. Start your trial now at huntress.com/Karl. Welcome to this SMB Community Podcast. This is Karl. I had the pleasure of attending the ChannelPro event in Columbus, Ohio. And as always, ChannelPro events are a really great combination of vendor opportunities and meeting some really good people and some really great content. So if you get a chance, go to one of the ChannelPro shows. Two people of particular interest that I caught up with are Wayne Small from the SMB IT Professionals of Australia. Wayne and Ryan were in the US for another event and decided, hey, as long as there's something else going on, they thought they'd try and attend ChannelPro in Columbus. And now they're on their way to Denver. The other person I caught up with was Moreno, who has a very interesting and very specific kind of niche that I think most of us would be jealous of. He focuses on people who have a small staff and a large budget. In other words, they're on the S side of SMB, but they have enterprise type budgets. So I talked to him a little bit about what those projects look like and how you get started. We're going to start with Wayne and then go to the interview with Moreno. And Wayne, say hello to everybody.
G'day.
So you have a Southern accent, very Southern accent.
Indeed.
So you've obviously traveled halfway around the world, almost, yes. Exactly, to be here. So what brings you to Ohio or to the United States? What are you doing here?
Well, this event in particular, you brought me here, Karl. We were talking about a trip I was doing where I'm going to PAX 8 Beyond in Denver, which is next week. And I was having a chat with you about, looking and seeing what other events might be around before or after that so that I could make better use of the flight across the ocean. And you suggested that I come along and check out this particular event, which I've been quite happy with.
Very good. Now, I enjoy talking to you in part because you put on an event. In fact, you're with the SMB IT Professionals, and you put on the greatest event in Australia and one of the greatest events worldwide. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, thank you for the compliment, Karl. It means a lot coming from you. The SMB IT Professionals conference that we have in Australia is, this year it's in Melbourne. It's on the 25th, 26th of October. And at last year's event, we had over 200 people show up, all focusing on talking about the issues in SMB, being MSPs, security providers, and so forth. And it was an awesome event. It really was. We've halfway full this year already, and we've still got several months more before the event happens. So we're really very excited about it. This year's event, we're focusing and talking a lot more around cybersecurity, very, topical thing.
Right.
But also around AI. And what we're hoping to do is cut through the fluff that surrounds AI, where everybody is saying AI this, AI that, and look more at the realities of AI. How can you use AI to generate business? Where should you use AI? Where shouldn't you use AI? And try and look at the security side of that. So there's some really interesting talks coming down the track. So I'm really looking forward to it and excited to see what's coming.
Well, it's been a great event, and I don't even know how many years I've been going, but it's probably getting close to 10. And it's a wonderful event, but you're also literally a citizen of the world. So you come to the United States on a fairly regular basis, and to other countries as well. Not just Fiji and New Zealand, but places that are even more of a flight away from that. Um, so when you were here, you told me that you had to take a security exam at the university in Australia.
That's right.
So
Yes.
that is some dedication there.
Yes.
And a little bit of planning. So tell us about that exam and what you were up to.
So not only am I the CEO for SMB IT Professionals, but in my spare time, so to speak,
Right.
I'm also doing a lot of vCIO and vCISO consulting. And in order to do that properly, I desired to have formal qualifications. There are different industry qualifications you can get, but one of the things that I'm doing as a tertiary level is studying at Charles Sturt University, which is an online university in Australia, and studying for my master's in cybersecurity. I already have my graduate certificate in cybersecurity, which was one step along the way. But the exam I was doing last night was all around forensic investigation. This is where we, as security professionals, need to be able to correctly assess a situation and forensically analyze that, from evidence collection through to searching through digital media, for instance, for information that may or may not exist. Last night's exam I had to do for a couple of hours from midnight on. It just happened to line up with the time zones, and I was pleased to say that I went through the exam, and I feel I did pretty well.
Yeah, here's a side question. Did it help or hurt your ability to get in this time zone?
I actually think it helped because I'm doing pretty well time zone wise, but I think it helped this time. Yes.
Very good. So on the virtual CISO, is it possible for an MSP to actually be up to spec on security in the 21st century? And I don't mean to be demeaning, but it's so big and it's so complicated and it changes even faster than the rest of the industry. It's like this layer that changes faster than everything else.
Yeah.
And how do you engage? How do you make sure that your MSP isn't doing stuff you shouldn't and is doing all the stuff you should and keeping up on it? And it seems impossible.
It's a valid question there, Karl. And I might start by actually talking a little bit. Prior to what I'm doing now, I ran my own MSP for 25 years.
Right.
So been there, done that. We started looking at building our own security team to do this. And one of the things that we thought about as we did this is it's great to have our own security team, but how do they truly critique the work that the MSP team is doing when they're actually related? See, and that's the thing. Business practices will be shared between the two teams. And so that might lead to actual vulnerabilities in our analysis process.
Right.
So my personal belief is that in the MSP world, you need an independent person to validate the security work that that MSP is doing. And the reason you need that is not to pick on the MSP, but to ensure that the MSP is doing the best without assuming things that you might subconsciously assume.
Well, and do you see either short-term or long-term that either the governments or the insurance companies will say, look, you have to go through the checklist, but you can't vet your own checklist? Like, you go through it, but somebody else has to say, yes, he did this appropriately.
So this is where the different industry frameworks are coming into play here. It's not just about my checklist. It's about being compared to an industry framework like CIS and NIST controls. In Australia, we have the Essential 8 framework, Essential 8 controls. It's about being validated to those controls, not your best practice or my best practice, but what is the industry? Because they're the people that are actually going to be driving this more so than you or me.
Right. And we deal with, laws, especially with privacy and stuff, but laws that affect us from Europe, because almost everybody here, one way or another,
GDPR
at least sends email or something and has to be compliant with that. And then you have to be compliant with, we have North American stuff, we have Asia Pacific stuff. Like, it's almost as if there's a global standard, but not quite.
That's it. I think that's the beauty of this is that so many people agree there need to be standards, yet those standards vary.
Right. And how much of those standards actually, if you just, ignored all that, closed your eyes, did a blind taste test, if you have absolute best practices, how close are you to being secure?
I think that there's a lot of commonality. Things like passwords, things like multi-factor authentication, patching applications, application control, what can be run on the computer, backups and things like that. There are common threads through all of this that are the core tenets that we need in any cybersecurity strategy. So I think that there are commonalities, but there's also variances in those that account for different government requirements. In different industries, for instance, the healthcare industry, you have much more stringent control over the data that we classify as PII. Yet in some other industries, PII is not classified as such in the same way.
Well, and how do you explain it to clients, right? Because you've got layers. You got the people who write the rules, and you got the people who understand the rules.
Yeah.
Then you have the people who do sort of most of the work, and then you've got these end users who are like, I can't spell PII.
Yeah, look, I think that one of the things that we tend to do in our industry, in the technology industry, is we tend to try and talk tech too often. Okay, it's a common failing of many technical people is that they just fall straight back into the acronyms and things like that. Customers, they don't give a rat's about what that is. They really don't care. What they want to do is keep it simple. So I try to keep all of my terminologies down to simple things. We talk about buses and trains and cars and people and doors and windows and things like that. And we try and relate everything to those things that we all can see and understand. And by keeping it down to that simple level, they start to get it. Whether they accept it is a different thing, but if they start to get it, that's the first part of their learning cycle.
Right. Well, some of the best compliments I've received from clients are, you made this understandable and you didn't make me feel stupid.
Yes.
And I think sometimes just literally using 12 acronyms in a row, you're not trying to make people feel stupid, but it is kind of the result.
It is. It's a subconscious thing that we do as technical people, because in this field, let's face it, in the SMB space, nobody starts being a business person that starts running a technical business. We're all technical people that start to run a business. And so that is our safe space. It's quite natural for us to fall into that safe space. And that's why we have to push ourselves out of that safe space into a more business-minded, more customer-focused discussion.
Right. Now, how do folks get in touch with you and find out more about, the kind of stuff you're doing? Because I know that, the result of this education is going to be offering some virtual CISO services.
Look, you can look me up, go to www.waynesmall.com. From there, you'll be able to reach out and see the things that I do and contact me.
Now, all right, I don't want to say that you're an old man, but how did you get waynesmall.com?
Sheer luck, and the fact that there's no other poor bugger out there with the same name.
Oh, that can't be true. All righty. Well, enjoy your travel in the United States, and good luck with all the stuff that you're doing.
Thanks for your time, Karl. Appreciate it.
And I will see you in October.
We will. Looking forward to it, mate. Cheers.
I am here with Mark Moreno from Mishawaka, Indiana. Did I say that right?
You did.
Indiana is tough.
Yeah. The last time we did an interview, you pronounced Mishawaka the same way.
Well, I'm from Yakima, Washington, so we have a different set of words that no one can pronounce.
It's all ancient American, right?
Mark, one of the things that you've started doing, I think last year, but maybe this year, is to join Harry Brailsford at the MSP Rescue. Tell us what is MSP Rescue?
Well, Harry, as most of us in the channel space know, has been an events guy forever.
Right.
He's been a publisher, but his jam is events. And having diversified after, I think, a lot of issues within his own life and so on, he's kind of trying to circle back to what he really loves to do. MSP Rescue came about initially on a partnership with him and Lori Tishnai from Chicago.
Right.
He reached out to me before that event and said, "Hey, how'd you like to come participate? Give me a hand in getting this off the ground. You like to speak. How about maybe share some of the MC duties?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?"
You love to talk.
I do. I can't. No one can ever get me to shut up, so it's all good. But what the event is just kind of it's a reset, because there's a need, I think, that he's perceived, that I see, and that other guys in this business perceive, that we're on the precipice of a major change. And there are a lot of guys who are doing the MSP that know what they're doing, but there are a lot that don't, and they need help.
Right.
Back in the day when he brought SMB Nation based on Small Business Server to market, it was the same concept.
Right.
And I think that what he and I have discussed and see is that precipice, we're there again. There's some kind of major change going. And by being able to craft an event that can help, even if it helps one MSP, take that leap from, okay, I'm doing this and I'm kind of enjoying myself, but I'm maybe not a grown-up business, towards listening to professional individuals who've been where they are and can be a grown-up business. I think that's what the if there's a target, I'd
Right.
say that's what it is.
So we'll put the link down below to make sure it's in the show notes. But how do we find out more about MSP Rescue?
Well, we're online. Google it. It's got some presence. It's catching up and so on. We are in the process of putting the next event together. Dates are still a little bit to be determined, just in working with sponsors and so on, but it will be in Texas. And I'll have more, and we can touch bases maybe next week. We're doing another planning meeting tomorrow, and things are going to come together with our next event. We've been in Chicago a year ago in February. Last summer we were in New Jersey, and just here about 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, I think it was, we were in Southern California.
Right.
So it's gaining traction, and it's coming together, and it's proving to be, I think, a valuable event for those who make the time.
All right. So let's back up a bit.
Yeah.
So the Moreno Group,
Yes.
What do you do, and why are you in a slightly different market than a lot of the other folks in S&B?
So number one, I'm one of the old guys in the business now.
That's an excellent point.
You know, I've been doing this in some measure before I got my act together. I mean, I started doing IT work in the 90s, 94. Took another W-2 job here and there along the way, ISPs and so on, just to kind of learn the skill, be an expert in the craft. But in 2001, I incorporated and never looked back. We've always, as a provider, been somewhat on the bleeding edge. I found myself doing things that I'd come to events and hear, you got to be doing this. Like, oh, we're doing that already. And that's kind of been our trademark. Once I had been to maybe 2 or 3 SMB nations, that's where we met,
Right.
actually, and where I've met a lot of other guys inside of this space. It became crystal clear that there was a niche to be found in referral business, which is always how we have gained new clientele, at least
Right.
up until pre-COVID. And inside of that, the trust of that relationship allowed me to focus on finding just a few what we called mid-market SMBs. These are businesses with a low seat count, maybe 25 to 75, in some cases, maybe 150 at the top, but just stellar rock star businesses on the revenue side, such that the ability to spend money on IT, that's not really a conversation that we have to have a long, drawn out engagement on.
Right.
And we have always approached ourselves in the concept of another popular paradigm now, which is the fractional chief technology officer, fractional CTO. But again, I've been doing that for as long as I can remember, it seems
Right.
like. And that has been our specialty towards cornering or excelling inside of that market. So we don't have to go super wide. We go deep inside of that vertical, and it has served us really, really well.
So how do you find a company that has a low headcount, low-ish, a headcount that's in the S side of SMB,
Right.
but a budget that's in the M side of mid-market?
Yeah, almost enterprise kind of budgeting is the way it works. And so mid is kind of the balance between small headcount, enterprise, revenue, and thinking. And so you're kind of in the M, right? The way that we got started with it, the initial critical mass, we did by partnering. So I've gone to lots of these events and had a reputation for being a high-powered hired gun. I worked with a company in our region called Cyber, which was big in the IBM AS400,
Right.
just stuff that I was never going to be a competitor in. However, their x86 business at that point, Microsoft, anything, we were a good fit. Their clientele were already in this space.
Right.
And those type of clientele were not their sweet spot. And since there was no animus in really working together, and not even a frenemy dynamic, there was no problem in them recommending us. Once I achieved 3 of these, the referrals have been perpetual, and that has continued since the 2000s.
Well, because they go to conferences and they meet each other,
Yeah.
right? So their friends are the ones who are in that space.
Yes, it really has been, and I've talked with a couple other folks at this event who kind of see me as the old guy and someone who's been doing this, and what could you tell me to achieve the success you guys have? And what I've said is the most important business you can ever achieve and the most valued business you can ever get as a referral from a happy customer for another customer who's in the same space that you want to be in, the same client type that you want. Because all of the marketing, cost of acquisition of the customer, everything that makes getting these deals difficult in the everyday, that's all off the table. All I have to do is sit down and have a conversation and then provide some references that we can deliver, and then go through our tried and true trust, or try and then trust.
Right.
So let us come in and handle this piece. Let us work in place of you hiring another higher level IT director or CTO. Let us come in and help you do this. Give us 3 months, give us 6 months, give us a year. After that, we're going to come back to the table and I'm going to make the big ask.
Now, is it mostly project money or mostly managed service contracts, or does it start as projects and moves to managed services?
The only project space that comes in side of what we do here is the try and the trust. Beyond that, we are pure play recurring revenue business. I do project businesses in the B2B and where necessary, but it's never on target of what I'm aiming for. So if I'm throwing darts at a board, project or anything that's not recurring revenue is nowhere near the bullseye. It's ancillary to everything else.
Right. So I've had a few clients who are in that space. One of them that pops into mind, early on in the late 90s, they had like 100 employees, but they had this massive worldwide organization, and they like provided parts for the space shuttle, right? That kind of stuff, right? So I was only brought in when they couldn't fix something in-house, and they were like, okay, like, and sometimes it was stupid stuff, right? Like they were still doing work group printers, and it was like, okay,
So, what we hate, but we know we can do.
Right. Yeah, I was like, okay, all right. So, but another one later on, they were actually big enough where they said, we need somebody to run the IT department. And so in the first case, I was co-managing, or, I was working with somebody who was in-house. And the other one, they were like, we don't want to pay somebody an $80,000 salary to do one thing.
Exactly.
And so we'll pay you a little less than that. But we still need you to provide somebody to sit in our meetings and be part of our quarterly meetings. I was one of the department heads, basically.
Yeah.
Have you had that kind of relationship with any of these folks?
Very much. It's really part of our strategy. We tell all of our customers that you have to perceive any movement you want to make on a big idea as IT being a core element. You may have no idea what that even means or what you need to include, but you don't have to. If we're involved, I can help you at the earliest stages miss all the landmines and then not have to blow up budgets or end up scrambling because you're being held to account for an idea and a timeline, and what's letting it down is IT. Because technology matters in virtually every business nowadays, and with AI and all these new paradigms coming into place, it's more and more important.
Right.
And so we've shown that to be value. So we start the conversation and we start the relationship emphasizing making that compulsory.
Right.
But they see in very short order how valuable that is, where I don't have to chase them down. Hey, we got this new idea, or make certain that they'll call me, you're going to be here for the quarterly. And we try to get the C-levels and department heads, do it with our valuations of how everything looks. But quarterly, we are all sitting down at that level and speaking.
Well, and you mentioned the budget.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to say, no, you can't do that. That's a stupid idea. Let me save you $50,000.
Exactly.
And then it's not that money is available for something else, but they clearly see that you are not there to just take all the money and run.
No.
You're there to help them actually manage their IT, which means managing the cost as well.
There's an element, I think, as business owners of skin in the game. If we've ever tried to hire employees, there's a subset of people who are punching the clock. And the job is a job, and it's a means towards getting something else going on in their life. As business owners, it's very different because our retirement plans, our future, our ability to provide is completely and I mean in a quantum fashion tied to our commitment. It's rare that vendors for any business even have that discussion. But one of the measurements that we ask them is do you feel like our way of doing business and our involvement, you would look at us as having skin in the game for your business? And like I said, it's a rarity, and it's one of those things that has completely differentiated us. And even when further ups or pressure on finance has said, hey, listen, let's just evaluate. We'd like to bring in a third party and test, right? Are things going well? I invite it. Many times I even volunteer to turn around and give them 3 choices on who else I know inside of the business that can come and validate the work.
Right.
And that's ballsy because you're really putting yourself at risk unless you know that you're going to deliver, right?
Yeah. Especially you bring in somebody that is not on your payroll either.
Well, exactly. And again, that has demonstrated that our deliverable of skin in the game for our clients is exactly our culture, and that's what makes it work.
Right. Very good. So, final question, and we'll get back to MSP rescue.
Yeah.
But so, if people want to move into that space, want to move into finding, that, how do they start? How do you find the first client that has, a smaller number of employees and a much larger budget?
If I was to say I had a strategy and that I executed it perfectly, that's a load of malarkey. These opportunities present themselves when you're on point, focused, and doing what you do well. What I can say is that what worked for us was that I sought out relationships where I could be perceived as an expert. So in the instance of where we were working with cyber and the nature of being an Active Directory expert, a migration expert back in the day, that led me to be perceived as an absolute professional and then exposed me to the client set that I was looking for. Not in every case. Some of it was pure play projects. But then again, like I said, there were these clients that were a fit for what I was aiming for. So in direct answer to your question, you have to put yourself in the space where these people are. So it could be trade shows. It could be by a measure of identifying those in your market and coming up with a lunch and learn, or something I would say in today's world being a security specialist. Because if you can come in and show that you can deliver a security solution that doesn't put them in the position of an MGM, Clorox, City of Atlanta, Baltimore, and show them what a real threat that can be, and the fact that you can help them never have to be on the other side of mitigating that. That'd be something I think in today's world that if I were starting over, that's what I'd be focusing on.
Very good. All right. Well, let's get back just real quick to MSP Rescue. So these shows are fairly small, right?
Yes, they are. They're small, I think, out of necessity is kind of where we are going now, because it's a startup. So that's required us to think conservatively, manage cost and so on. The VFWs exist in virtually every city.
Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Yes, yeah, they're halls, and they're set up with a bar, which is great for the post-party.
There you go.
They're very easy to work with, very low cost. So by putting feelers out, we have managed at each city after Chicago, so in this case it was New Jersey and then in California, to reach out to a local VFW, and they've been happy to have us. There's no one there during the day for the most part, so we had exclusive use of the facility. And then bartender comes for the afternoon. We have a great social gathering, and it's been a great fit. We could outgrow it, but right now, why fix what isn't broken?
Right. All right. So folks can keep an eye out for that MSP Rescue, and it'll be somewhere in Texas.
Yeah. Austin, Dallas area is where the final landing spots going to be for it.
I haven't been to Austin in a while, and I need my music fixed, so I'm just random thought,
Well, when I talk with Harry later in the week, we'll make sure we get you there and on stage.
Very good. All right. Mark Moreno, thanks for talking to us today. I appreciate it. And with luck, we'll see you at another event soon.
Yeah, Karl, it was great to be here.
Today's SMB Community Podcast is brought to you by Huntress Managed Security. Cybersecurity isn't just about software, it's about expertise. Huntress boasts the #1 rated endpoint detection and response for small and medium-sized businesses on G2. Trust us to keep your systems secure. With a 99% customer satisfaction score, our support team is second to none. We're not just a vendor, we're your partners on the security front line. Ready to experience the future of cybersecurity? Start your trial now at huntress.com/Karl. Don't wait. Lock down your defenses today.